right, hey everyone, welcome to The Field Between. My name is Ahmed.
And I'm Yasmin.
And this is full disclosure, second episode we're recording in a day because we're just content machines.
Yeah, we got a cool opportunity. I think we can say, right? Tease it a little bit.
No, don't say it.
Okay.
You gotta wait for the surprise.
We had a cool interview, and so it was just nice to kind of record it ahead of time. But we'll be releasing that one next Monday, whereas this will come out tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a little catch up, and then I think for this episode, there are just a couple things that we need to weigh in on or feel like we need to discuss. Those being the ceasefire, and then some of the adoption of the IHRA definition of antisemitism at Harvard, and I think more broadly. But anyway, all right, what's going on personal lives?
Not much. Actually, quite a bit. Our car broke down. I think we told you that last episode. And it was like a whole thing to fix it, but Ahmed figured it out. It didn't cost any money, so that was great. Mm-hmm. The dealership took care of it. And then Tuesday night, when we had record low temperatures, it was negative
8 or something.
Negative 8 degrees outside. Ahmed was fully asleep, and I heard a boom sound.
Yeah.
And then I smelled burning rubber.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where, like, me gaslighting Ahmed repeatedly, or I don't know if gaslighting is the right term. But
no, you're like the boy who cries wolf.
Exactly.
All right, like so I was asleep, and then as we're falling asleep, you do this. You just paw at me. Hold on, wait. We just make sure mic etiquette. We're gonna go over it again. No. Yasmin is writhing around in anger, but when you laugh into the mic, you can't do the plosive. Otherwise,
I'm hearing that you don't want me to laugh.
No,
it's
I
making
want you
me
to
sad.
Laugh. Your laugh is beautiful. It's just that in the mic, it doesn't come off as a laugh. It comes off as a big explosion in someone's ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But usually you are doing so to kind of wake me up. Like, what was the thing that was? I was like on the cusp of sleep, and you like woke me up. What was that? You were like,
I didn't know you were almost asleep that time. I told you I was going to make for breakfast. I was like, I'm going to put kimchi on the pancake.
You're like, do you want to hear what I'm going to make for breakfast tomorrow? I was like, bro, I was just about to fall asleep.
Ahmed claims that I can figure out just when he's about to sleep, and that's when I strike. But I do, I like to I can't fall asleep easily, and this man, like all men on earth, falls asleep instantaneously.
Oh
so I'm just there. I'm bored, and I'm trying to so I often wake him up. Not often, but I have a history of waking him up or being like, let's talk about this right now at 1 a.m.
Yeah, but most of the times it's like, okay, I have something I want to talk about or discuss or whatever. But this was just like, what do you think we should have for breakfast, huh? And I'm like, I truly don't care.
But anyway, so this time it was pretty funny because I was like, Ahmed, wake up. And he immediately was like, no. He was fully asleep. And I was like, Ahmed, it's an emergency. And he literally was like,
it's not an emergency.
No, it's not an emergency. And I was like, it's an emergency. But then I got him up, and it was good because, our furnace.
You proceeded to just crawl downstairs. And I say crawl because we have to crawl up and down stairs on a ladder. But you were just like, okay, he's not getting up. I'm just going to go downstairs and check it out. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I don't know what she's on about. But, and then when I woke up a little bit more, you could definitely smell a burning smell in the house.
No, you totally were on board once you were out of the loft and down the precarious ladder and on our floor, smelling the strong burning smell,
which was our furnace giving out.
Yeah, so our furnace gave out. Thankfully, our property manager lives next door, and he's really nice, so he came over and brought over all these little heating, what are they called, small heaters?
I mean, they're space heaters, but
they
really are like a drop in a bucket.
They are, but just in terms of we didn't want our pipes to freeze,
Yeah. And then we slept in a different unit for the night.
That happens to be empty in our complex.
For a couple of nights.
Yeah. So it was a little bit of an annoying week, honestly. It sounds like a small thing, but it just kind of threw everything off. We couldn't access the kitchen easily. We didn't,
It was also it was also scary to come down and shower because you just know it's going to be cold as hell.
Yeah. It just made us not want to really move around.
Yeah. And then dishes and stuff piled up because pretty much we were here to cook our meals, and then it was too cold to just hang out after and do chores. And so by the time everything was fixed, the house was pretty out of order.
Yeah. But we spent this weekend, we canceled the cafe, and we spent this weekend kind of getting our stuff back together, and it was good. It was good to catch up.
Yeah.
What did we do this weekend?
We went to the fundraiser.
Yeah, we went on to a Not on Our Dime fundraiser. A friend hosted, which was really lovely. I feel like both you and I were kind of out of it on Saturday for some reason, but we're doing better today.
Yeah.
I think you were sad about job stuff and I was stressed. I think I'm stressed about work and I was projecting on the house a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Though I also get stressed when the house is like a little out of sorts. But it was understandable. I mean, we weren't here all week really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But today it was really productive. We already recorded a podcast. I had the Bundle, the arts collective I run with a friend. We co-hosted with a group in Durham, North Carolina called Mothers for a Ceasefire. We co-hosted a book club, so that was really fun. Mm-hmm. Nice to see some old North Carolina faces on there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You were saying after you still want to move to North Carolina.
I do. I just really love the kind of organizing that's happening there. I just, especially thinking about one day wanting a family, I think it's so nice to see families involved in activism and parents involved in creative community. And I'm sure that exists elsewhere, but we don't really have many friends who are parents here. So I haven't seen it for myself.
We know some parents.
One or two, but we had a lot of people in our extended circle who were parents in North Carolina.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if we were in that stage of life, I'm sure we'd find those people,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I've talked about this before. It's definitely a little bit of a romanticizing thing, but I do wish we could go back, even though I love Pittsburgh and I'm very happy here.
Yeah.
Though I'm tired of the cold, but I love the people.
Yeah.
It just feels like we're surviving, man. It's I feel like I'm a little, sorry if this is messed up or politically incorrect, but I feel like I'm a little Russian peasant trying to survive, just wearing lots of layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way.
It's fair.
Yeah. I don't know if Russian peasants had Canada Goose jackets.
Yeah, they probably didn't. That's true. You're right. But yeah, it's cold.
Yeah. It's warming up though. It's nice that now when we're outside, 30 degrees feels like spring.
I know, but that's messed up. I hate that for us. That 35 feels like you've really adapted. Yeah. We went out the other night and we came back and Ahmed was wearing nothing. I was like, you look like a real Pittsburgher. What's wrong with you?
I wasn't wearing nothing, but I was like,
you were not wearing a winter coat. That was crazy.
Yeah, but I layered strategically. I was wearing, a thick hoodie with a little overcoat thing on it, and that's enough.
Yeah, this man was like, what? It's 36 degrees. I was like, you're nuts. I'm always cold. Yeah. North Carolina changed me forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm adaptable.
Clearly. I'm proud of you.
What else is new?
I've been trying to exercise more, but it's so hard with other stuff. I was hoping to do 3 times a week. I've been doing 2, which is better than nothing.
Yeah.
But I would really love to get into a routine where I was exercising 3 times a week.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Should we just start being better people and better Muslims and waking up at 5 a.m., pray Fajr, and then go to the gym?
No, that doesn't sound nice to me.
Like an Ubermenschian goal.
Honestly, that's not a goal for me. I feel like
battle the harsh cold.
I'm a bit of a night person. I mean, once in a while, if I get up early, I do go to the gym, or I've done that a handful of times. It does feel kind of special because it doesn't feel in my nature.
Yeah.
So I get the appeal of it, but it's important to me. I also struggle with sleep. And so if I go to bed late or if it's hard for me to fall asleep, I just want to sleep in. It's more important. I'm not a nice person when I don't sleep well. And I feel that's probably my number one health thing that I have to maintain is my sleep. And then I would like to exercise more, but that's the secondary thing, even to sleep.
Yeah. What if you just fill your school backpack with a bunch of dumbbells and then that's kind of like a workout?
I sometimes walk up and down the steps to get a few steps in because especially in the winter, I just don't move as much. It's not even I'm trying to hit crazy goals. I'm just trying to be vaguely active. Yeah. And so, if it's too cold to go outside, I do walk around school sometimes. Yeah. I see really weird stuff in the hallways.
I saw, I read, and by read, I mean saw an Instagram post from the New York Times. Did you see this? About the U.S. Conception of working out versus fitness in other places?
No.
And it's just a little slideshow, and I'm not even really sure. I'm sure you'd have to read the article for it to make a little bit more sense. So this is going to come off as a critique or whatever, but I really don't have one. But it's just Japanese people go to this park and they have these free body weight classes that they do as a group and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just I feel like that happens here. And then it was showing somewhere else in I don't know, other parts of the world where like people were at like an outdoor gym and all hanging out, and I'm like, yeah, people do that here too. It's just that we also have commercial gyms. I think it was trying to contrast like commercial gym
Accessibility.
fitness versus like fitting fitness into your everyday routine, but also like going to an outdoor gym or like going to an exercise class that's outdoors doesn't necessarily mean that you're just fitting it into the course of your day. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like you're still carving out time for
I think the
fitness.
place where I could see that more is that like our cities are not built always to be very like walkable by foot. So like there
Yeah.
are certain cities where it's just like easier in your daily life that you can walk to work or bike to work, you know.
Yeah.
And honestly, Pittsburgh is not bad. It's just the fucking cold.
Yeah.
Like I don't move as much as I do in the summer here. And it really depends on who you are and what you're comfortable with. Like I actually throughout the course of my day moved a lot naturally in North Carolina because I love to bike.
Yeah.
And so I biked everywhere, but it wasn't necessarily like the best walking city ever, but it was a pretty easy biking city if you were just doing like a little like bike to the main town or a coffee shop or whatever. And it was warm all year round or warmer, so it was easier to do that. I have gone for a couple of really short 10-minute bike rides now just to the Strip District, and it's not that bad. So I would like to try and increase my biking tolerance in the snow. I think it's hard to figure out what layers to wear. I still have to figure that out. But that's like a form of exercise that I really like that feels more like you're just looking at scenery, you know?
You need wind protection for your face for sure.
Yeah, you're right. I think I need some kind of like baklava. Is that what it's called?
No.
What's it called?
Baklava is the dessert.
Oh, what's the thing for your
You're thinking
face?
of balaclava.
Balaclava. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that
You
reminds
could
me.
eat baklava
To
while
protect
riding a
me?
bike. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Because the sugars would help you, they would be transferred into energy. But you don't want to eat baklava while wearing a balaclava.
No, you're right. That would be a bad
That'd be
combination.
messy. Because then it gets all sticky on your face.
This is a tangent, but at our friend's fundraiser this weekend, they had this really cool Syrian dessert I'd never had before. I assume it's Syrian. It was like cotton candy, but like a different texture, like a kind of like thicker texture and like less. I mean, I think it was still pure sugar, but it had kind of like a softer taste. I really liked it.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Something that Syrians are doing that's cool. I was a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of fitness, health, lifestyle, I've started juicing.
You made one juice today. Is
I
that
made one
juicing?
the other day.
That's true. That's
I made
true.
one the other day.
It was really good.
Yeah, I'm trying to. We'll see, because I heard that this was from a doctor on TikTok
Okay.
that this was a good thing to drink if you want an anti-inflammatory type thing.
I mean, this has been around for forever, for sure. I mean,
No.
there's so many like.
Just discovered it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna give everyone the recipe, and
That's
you
fair.
write this down.
I was gonna say there's so many like Ayurvedic and like old ideas of having ginger for inflammation. Yeah, but okay,
This
continue.
guy's
Tell us.
Pakistani.
There, kind of counts. All right.
Yeah.
I used to make you a drink kind of like this. Do you remember that?
No.
It was like lemon and ginger and honey. I would make it when you were sick.
I don't remember this at all.
Are you kidding? Wow. I would make you like a tea, and you once asked me for the recipe, and I texted it to you. Yours is more of a juice, but I made you a tea that was this principle. It was tons of ginger and tons of lemon.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Can't believe that I'm being erased here. Okay, continue.
No, I mean, yeah, it is.
I
just
was
like,
the Pakistani in your TikTok. No.
yeah. It's ginger, lemon, olive oil,
Oh, olive oil. That's interesting.
little olive oil, because apparently the fats from the olive oil bind with something else, and it's good. I don't remember exactly.
Okay, nice.
Okay, and then the turmeric, black pepper,
Black pepper and turmeric is good.
because the pepper activates the curcumin,
Yeah,
the
I don't know, but
turmeric.
I've heard it helps.
and then the guy on TikTok did an orange as well. And when you do the lemon, you just peel the outside of the lemon, but leave the pith around it because that's fiber. And so the fiber and the sugar, like you don't want to just have a bunch of sugar without the fiber. So that's good. But then in the video, he also did an orange with the pith around it and stuff. And then you just blend that up, add a little bit
Ooh,
of
I'll
water.
add orange to the grocery list because I think that would be really tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then mint. And I would have liked to do like a mint oil because I feel like that would be better. But the mint oil that we have, I don't think is food grade. So anyway, that's all supposed to be like a really good anti-inflammatory thing, which apparently is also supposed to be like a good probiotic type thing. So I don't know. We'll see. It kind of, I drank a half a glass today. I'm drinking it now. And I kind of feel like my stomach burns a little bit. So
yeah, you also have stomach issues, so you got to balance that. But no, I love like turmeric ginger shots. Our friends made one for you too, I think, also that you liked.
Yeah, it's cute. They have like a nightly ritual of making those.
It's so cute, really. Every night.
Yeah, and then they play Xbox before they go to bed.
Such a funny combination.
I know.
Also, if we had like seltzer, you could dilute it with seltzer or like have the same amount but have seltzer in it, and that would be like a nice, refreshing drink also.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all for it. I like little
and honey.
Gingery things.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll update on how that goes. Yeah. What else? Anything else?
No,
Or
I think
should
those
we
are
just jump
updates.
in?
We've got our car. We're back in our home.
Yeah.
Things are looking up, inshallah.
Yeah.
For us personally.
Nice. Okay, so this IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, I looked it up, and it doesn't seem like the International Hot Rod Association, which is the first thing that comes up for me. They don't really say much about anti-Semitism
really?
on their website. No, but they do have a lot to say about nitro jam drag racing. But then I scrolled down, and there's something called the International Holocaust Remembrance Association.
Yeah, I've got it here if you want. I can read it.
Okay. So this is their what is anti-Semitism definition.
Yeah, so this was in 2016, and the first part is honestly fine. It says anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. All of that is like
Fair
super reasonable and would stand up, I think, with any kind of like type of discrimination against a specific group of people. Like
No
that's
qualms
very
there.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
But then they have 11 examples underneath that.
Oh.
Yeah. And so one of the examples specifically, I'll read to you.
Wait. So is that the full definition, or is the definition multi-part, or is
So
this like...
when people cite this, they tend to include the 11 examples. So
Okay,
one
so
of
the 11 examples is what people have been adopting, or like the
whole thing.
the
Yeah.
whole thing?
And one of the 11 examples is denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. And another one is implying double standards by requiring of it, Israel, a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. So it pretty clearly conflates legitimate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, which would be a definition that would render like anti-Zionist Jewish groups in a really twisted way to be anti-Semitic.
Yep.
So like I think it's okay for me to say this. We had this debate. I won't go into too much detail, obviously, but we actually had this debate at work because I'm trying to think about how to say this diplomatically. We have a website that lists out like what are policies that would be discriminatory towards students or faculty or staff, which is a great idea to do, obviously. And we really weirdly currently have both the IHRA definition and then a different definition which explicitly critiques the IHRA definition. So that's kind of where we're at now. We have both up. The Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism was developed as a response to the IHRA definition in 2020, an attempt to better distinguish between hatred of Jews and criticism of the state of Israel. And that is a little more straightforward. It just says that anti-Semitism is discrimination, prejudice, hostility, or violence against Jews as Jews or Jewish institutions as Jewish, but it doesn't mention Israel.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I think it's been said over and over, and we don't need to hammer it. Obviously, this is conflating a nation state with the religious identity or even the ethnic identity of people is problematic for many reasons. One of the ones which you pointed out is that there are actually quite a few anti-Zionist Jews who, by this definition, would be labeled anti-Semitic. The other problem with this is that now anti-Semitism like is, something that is targeted in laws about like hate crime, hate speech, etc. And people do suffer more severe penalties and punishments when something is classified as a hate crime, like under the law, right? And so it makes it a lot more severe punishment potentially if this definition is adopted more widely, to charge someone with like a hate crime for something like, I don't know, wearing a keffiyeh or holding a sign that says Israel is an apartheid state. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can just like very much see someone going there with that. The other problem is that there's no definition for what seems to be the inverse of this, and the way that this IHRA definition of anti-Semitism is used. There's nothing to protect the rights of Palestinians who are also have a national identity and an ethnic identity. So there's nothing saying that someone suffering under Israeli occupation saying free Palestine, should, there's no protection for that. Or there's no punishment for, an IDF student at Columbia University going up to a pro-Palestine protester and throwing a noxious chemical on them,
right,
and sending them to the hospital.
It's also just kind of like idiosyncratic. Like there aren't generally protections, or there aren't generally bylaws at universities that prevent you from critiquing nation states.
Yeah.
Like it's just not really a thing that exists outside of this one case.
You can say, you cannot say Israel is a racist apartheid state under this definition.
Right.
You cannot say that the existence of Israel is predicated on the subjugation of Palestinians and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians and the extermination of Palestinians. Although all this is fact, you can't say that about Israel, but you can say that about the United States.
Yeah, it's also true of the U.S., so it's good that you can say about it. It's good that you can talk about the way that, indigenous people were mass murdered, en masse to create this country, and, that there was literally our economy couldn't have started without slavery. But yeah, no, it is weird, right? It's strange that for some reason you can critique even the country you live in, but not a foreign nation.
I can say, you can say Russia is an occupying force in Ukraine and that it's, a murderous genocidal state.
Right.
You can't say that about Israel. You can say that about North Korea. You can say that about China. You can say that about any number of
course countries. You can say it about our quote unquote enemies, but yeah.
But that's like the crazy thing. It's like there literally is just, on one hand, there is an Israel exception where like anything Israel does, no matter what, cannot be critiqued. And there is a Palestine exception in that Palestine and Palestinians and Palestine activism is uniquely not covered, like in terms of like providing protections for people who have an affinity for Palestine or the plight of Palestinians.
Yeah, you should care about Palestine for obvious reasons, but even if you are not that engaged on this issue, this is, as we've said before, a massive free speech issue. Like, this is something that I think people are okay with turning a blind eye to because of their, like, feelings on Israel or just not knowing much about the issue or thinking that it's complicated when it's not. But if you care about free speech more generally, this is definitely like a slippery slope. Like, it's this first. There will be other things later. And now that we're living under a very, very reactionary administration, it's highly likely that it will be this first and then like talking about race next or talking about gender. I mean, we're already seeing moves in that direction. Yeah. But I think people who are kind of planting their flag for this cause are going to be disappointed by some of the other freedoms of speech that will inevitably crash shortly thereafter.
And the thing that drives everyone nuts, including, I think, the two of us, is fine, okay, let's say that we adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is like so severe and broad, and you can't criticize Israel, but also like you shouldn't do generally things that everyone agrees are anti-Semitic, like I don't know, the Sig Heil salute, right?
Like our friend Elon Musk.
Yeah, but like literally none of these major Zionist organizations in the U.S. batted an eyelash about that.
Well, I mean, it was actually, I think, a really good turning point in some ways. I mean, it was horrific and awful that was something that was broadcast on national television. I think it was absolutely intentional. It was absolutely meant as kind of a creepy fucking warning. I mean, he is an idiot, but he did it twice, like very clearly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which historically has done very important work combating anti-Semitism, but has also been quite Zionist, and then has just like gone off the deep end with this genocide, that they have been such incredible genocide apologists. They have gone after every last 19-year-old wearing a keffiyeh. They've been crazy.
I mean, to be, my feeling is that they went off the deep end forever ago, because they have long attacked SJP and Palestine.
They have. No, that's absolutely true. But even by their own standards of that history, they've been like particularly rabid and crazy this last round.
It's escalated,
And the thing that is frustrating is that, again, historically, they have also done important work, because there is legitimately a horrific history of anti-Semitism in this country and obviously globally, and this country's history is linked to that global history. So it's unfortunate that the organization that was kind of like became the spokesperson for that then took on this other thing. But yeah, I mean, they posted saying like, we're not sure what this gesture meant. It's best to be, give the benefit of the doubt. And they got fucking roasted by everyone.
They're like,
and thank God.
He has autism.
Yeah, which is like, fucking autism is not an excuse for doing a Nazi salute. Also, we're not trying to coddle this man who is like the wealthiest man in this country, who is like, is he in the world? God damn. Who is like not elected and suddenly so risen in the ranks of our government for no fucking reason. Like, we don't need to like be careful with him. Like, fuck him,
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I looked up their comment section on every like social media platform I could find, and people were just like furious, including people who are pro-Israel, which is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But obviously a lot of people who were like I'm a Jew who has been like ashamed of you because of like you like made me feel like I couldn't be Jewish during this genocide, and like now you're doing this. Like, I'm glad you're showing your real colors. Like, they deleted the post. They got really roundly roasted, and I'm glad that they're kind of showing themselves for who they are, and that hopefully more people move away from the organization, because it's just like,
I don't think so. I don't think it'll happen, because I just think that at the end of the day, these organizations,
I think it will a little bit.
The thing that they're beholden to most is, I mean, maybe, I hope I'm wrong, but from what I see, the thing that they are most beholden to is the state of Israel. Like, they have fully been subsumed into this IHRA conception of anti-Semitism, and then conversely, like what it means to be a good Jew. Like, they are trying to make that mean that you just unwaveringly support the state of Israel.
Maybe this is overly optimistic, but I do think that there are less and less like hardcore Zionists in this country. I think that the ones who are there are like very powerful and have like a lot of connections and a lot of like lobbying power that's been built up over the years. But there are a lot of like liberal Zionists, and I know that maybe I'll get some crap for that, which is fair enough. But I do think that there are more liberal Zionists who thought that like there could have been a reformed Israel, or an Israel that was not an apartheid state, who are like not able to stomach the ADL doing shit like this. You know what I mean? I think also there are a lot of like Jewish Americans who, let me think about how to put this carefully.
Okay, while you think of that, can I say? So I actually think that this moment and what is happening now calls into question the very term liberal Zionist, right? Like, because I think that is something that has been thrown around for a while. And the way that I think of it now is just, it does seem, we were just watching West Wing, so I'll kind of use this as an analogy. The same way that people used to say clean coal, because that was just a term that was invented by the oil and gas industry to make coal seem like clean. Like, that is the same thing as liberal Zionist, which is like, you cannot support an ethno-state project that wipes people off of a land to which they are indigenous, and then be able to put a liberal face on that. Like, there is no such thing as liberal Zionism. Like, Zionism in and of itself is carried out as like a nation state project, is a fascist ethno-state ideology. And there's no, I mean, you can maybe, now I'm going to walk it back, but like, I do feel like liberalism begets fascism. And so it's just like a stepping stone on the way to fascism. But like, I still feel like liberal Zionist is like a contradiction in terms. And so I think now that the IHRA definition is coming under more scrutiny and it's making people feel a little squeamish, or they're not finding themselves not necessarily opposing it and saying like, if they're not able to parse out and say like, oh no, anti-Semitism is separate and apart from critique of the state of Israel, I would squarely put those people in the fully Zionist and pro-fascist camp.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I guess I do think I've met people who use the term liberal Zionist who wanted there to be an Israel that was not an apartheid state. I would say we're at a point now, and probably have been for a long time, if we're being honest, where that seems almost impossible to imagine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I think I pretty much agree with your assessment. I honestly don't have much to add to that. I wonder if it's just like a question of like terms, and there are people who used to use that term, and now it's getting harder and harder to use that term without it like seeming like an apology for genocide. You know what I mean? Like,
I
maybe
hope so.
yeah, maybe they meant something else by it initially.
Yeah.
Than what it seems to be supporting now.
Yeah, I'm not sure historically, but I think you're probably right. Is that, it's people who, again, probably get a little squeamish at the terrorist Zionist groups from the early 20th century and the late 19th century, who would go in and do pogroms to cleanse villages in Palestine. They're just like, okay, we'll overlook that history, but we don't want it to be an apartheid state now.
Right.
Like, that's probably where your liberal Zionist generally is. But,
which is honestly like relatable to a lot of like the US's history in a fucked up way. Doesn't make it okay.
No, it's definitely, I know what you mean.
I think I mentioned this before, and again, this might be controversial, but a book that I found really interesting and informative was Pua Rawkowski. I hope I'm saying her name right. She was a Polish Jewish feminist who had to flee Poland during World War II. And yeah, I mean, I think her like dream for like what it would be like to be in Palestine is just so far from the reality that immediately unfolded that she was pretty clearly crushed by that. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm not saying that was a widespread experience of the colonizers. They were colonizers. They called themselves colonizers, so it shouldn't be controversial to call them as such.
Even the New York Times called them colonizers.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, at the time. But yeah, I mean, I think that there was like a vision of a way things could have gone that didn't happen, and people just have to accept that we're working with what did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even that way was at the expense of other people, of Palestinians. So yeah, the reason that we want to talk about this, I mean, one, it's important to talk about, but Harvard just formally, said that the is it IHR? IHRA definition is going to be their campus-wide definition.
Yes.
Which is gutting, because it means that, that like any kind of group on campus that is doing anti-Israel activism, that is doing pro-Palestine activism, is subject to really hard recourse. The other thing that people have talked about in this conversation about definitions I think is really worth holding on to is that like they weren't written to be used in bylaws, but they're being used that way, which is kind of weird. So the IHRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Association.
Yep.
It's not like a legal entity. It's like a group that works on Holocaust remembrance, which is very important, obviously.
Yep.
But it's strange. Like, it is kind of, again, weird that it has gotten adopted in the language of like school boards and like universities. It wasn't really written with that in mind.
I'll put this out there and then we'll move on because I'm not really sure. But it does seem like this is actually something that should infuriate Jewish people, descendants of people who were killed in the Holocaust, anyone who, again, has any sort of compassion for, Jewish people broadly. The fact that an organization that ostensibly is invoking the Holocaust is creating a straight up Zionist definition of anti-Semitism and linking that to the most severe and deadly instantiations of anti-Semitic belief, you should be appalled. Like, it is an appalling thing to do, to just tarnish the history and the memory and the solemn remembrance of this event and of the people who perished in the event by, again, laying the foundation and the groundwork for fascist ideology, meaning that these governments are going to use this definition to curb free speech and to also promulgate and to try to put like a nice face on an apartheid state. Like, it's just,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
disgusting.
I mean,
it's fucking awful.
I think I agree. I think it's a disservice to remembrance of the Holocaust and the unbelievable pain and suffering to then like kind of use that to justify fascist actions against a different group of people. Yeah. And like not even obviously the same group of people, an entirely different group of people who are not involved in that horror.
Yeah.
I think people kind of also, I feel this way a lot about the way people talk about like Muslims and Jews as if they like have always been natural enemies. And I'm like, no, dude, like if anything, like Christianity and like Christian persecution of Judaism has like a very long history. Mm-hmm. And there's actually, you know, it's never perfect and things are always location and time specific, but there's actually like a very long history of like Muslim Jewish interaction peaceably in lots of different geographic contexts.
Yeah.
I was even talking to my students about like, and they were really interested in this, but like the term Judeo-Christian and how we say we're a Judeo-Christian country, like that only came into vogue after World War II. Because before that, we used to always say we were a Christian country. And then it started to sound a little fucking Nazi-like, as it should.
Yeah.
And so then it became like, oh, Judeo-Christian. But really, it's like, we shouldn't be a country that forces you to be associated with any religious tradition, right? We're ostensibly a country that has like separation of church and state. You know, what if you're like, and I've also heard Muslims be like, well, it should be Abrahamic. And like, of course, like there's a beautiful historical relationship between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. But at the same time, like, what if you're a Hindu American or like Sikh American or like Buddhist American? Like, what? You're not part of the American project? Yeah. Like, yeah. But this idea of like, oh, Jews and Christians are natural allies and Jews and Muslims are always fighting. Like, the Holocaust was 100% a European experience, a European-born horror, you know?
Yeah.
And not one that like Palestinians were responsible for, obviously. But I think it bears worth remembering that.
Yeah.
Including, you know, Muslim and Christian Palestinians. Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, there's obviously the whole Holocaust remembrance thing, which is the most important thing. But I also feel, and I'm not Jewish, so maybe it's not my place to say this, but just sort of thinking about conversations that we've had with friends and allies who are Jewish, like I feel like it's kind of cheapening the spirituality that a lot of people feel in connection to their faith to make it so narrowly bounded just to one nation state, you know? Like,
well, you're worshiping
the state. Yeah, exactly. Like the state is made up of people, as any state is.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like when people, it's not this bad, thankfully, though plenty of other things are shit about Saudi, but like, yeah, like when people like are overly protective of Saudi, or like when the handful of like psychopaths who like cap for like the Ayatollahs in Iran, it's like, these are just people, man. Like, these are not like, you know, these are just people using religious language. They're not necessarily even that religious themselves. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So Harvard adopted this definition. And actually, I think in the same week, the Harvard Med School canceled an event. What's that?
Sorry, I was just whispering. I didn't know that. I thought you were going to say something else, but continue.
Oh, you haven't seen this? So Harvard Med School, there was supposed to be an event on campus. Let me pull this up because I just want to make sure that I get this absolutely right. But it was supposed to be an event kind of like about caring for patients in like a war zone or who have suffered trauma from war or something like that. And they were going to have survivors from Gaza.
It would be like awkward not to. Yeah. Given the mass disabling event that just occurred. Yeah.
And they canceled the event saying that it wouldn't be fair to not have the Israeli perspective.
Oh, God.
So that to me is just like, not only is it bad on so many fronts, meaning that like it's bad for the students, it's bad for free speech, but it's like it is bad for your education. It is cheapening like this prestigious institution's mission to educate erudite students. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, it is embarrassing.
Yeah. Harvard's very clearly trying, because they've had such massive protests there, and they're clearly trying to like pick an angle that is just like, fuck y'all, we're going for it. Didn't they also just announce like a partnership with an Israeli university?
Yeah, they did that at the same time that they announced the IHRA.
Yeah, so they're just like going full for it, which is crazy.
Which what does that tell you is happening behind the scenes, right? Like clearly they have been I don't know if they've been thoroughly disciplined. They've probably always been aligned with their donors. Like the most important thing is the money continues to flow into Harvard and the donations continue to flow in. I think they are agnostic whether, you know, that money is coming because they are being Zionist or whether they are allowing pro-Palestine speech on campus. It just so happens that the former is where the money's coming from. And so they're just fully going into that direction, right?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about Harvard is it just like is very much, because it is like the upper echelon of like status in this country, it is just like really blindly connected to power in a way that is like almost a little refreshing, in that it's not really, of course you have like great minds there obviously, but that isn't a requirement for connection. Like it's not held to its motto of veritas or truth. Like when I was at Harvard Divinity School, which I was only there for 2 years and it was just a master's program, but still, like I remember Sean Spicer, like who was like, you know, the guy who dressed up in a bunny costume, who like was like Trump's
he was the press secretary,
who was like a rambling idiot. But like after he finally got let go by the Trump White House, he like went to work at Harvard, and it was like, it's, I mean, the thing is, it's not like, oh, Sean Spicer is brilliant. It's like, oh, if you meet Sean Spicer, you'll have a connection to power, you know? So I think that that is just like kind of the consistent thread. It's power for power's sake, and that's currently where the power lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, there are brilliant people there, but also like it is, for the most part, like a containment cell or like a holding cell for rich people's children, so that they can like rub elbows with enough people.
Not only, but yes, of course. Yeah.
And learn how to act among the upper classes.
And I think it's awesome, like how much education and how much we're able to, as much as we can, break out of the current like power structures that exist and imagine and work towards a better future in academia. And at the same time, academia is also still exists within a capitalist structure, and these are corporations and hedge funds essentially that run like any other corporation or hedge fund, and they're beholden to their, you know, their boards and the people that pay them. So yeah.
But I think what makes Harvard so appealing to rich people and their children is that historically it has also had some room, however small, of opportunity that someone not from those classes, some idiosyncratic beliefs and experiences could happen there. Because if anything, I know you're shaking your head no, but I'm saying like, if anything, like these people love to be around a select few chosen ones from like the lower classes, so that they can feel something about themselves. Like, I do think that they feel like they are being somewhat enriched by that, and the more these institutions close themselves off and like make themselves a lot more homogenous in terms of like ideology and class, they will become less appealing to the rich, and like it just,
I don't know, I feel like it's just kind of how like class works in this country, right? Like a few people are able to break loose, and that gives the illusion of equality, right? Or of like, of a society in which anyone can have social mobility, even though that's not true statistically for most people, you know?
It's not, no, but that's needed for the illusion. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. But I don't know that it's because rich people think it's going to make their kids better as much as it just makes it seem like...
I don't know that it's actually, they think it's going to make their kids better. I think they feel better. Like the same reason that's like, I don't know, like the thing that has made all these crazy tech billionaires go to like Austin, Texas, which is like a weird place, or like the reason that Elon Musk like continues to just like humiliate himself online because he's
like you're kind of connecting a lot of things.
No, because he's just like so desperate for the approval of like everyone who's just like who the fuck
a
are
lot
these
of people who are
to
able to make it to Harvard then assimilate to those kinds of ideals. You know what I mean? Not everyone, but like it's not as if like everyone from a lower middle class background who makes it to Harvard is an iconoclast who is like, you know, they might just be aspiring. I mean, anyway, I think we're also speaking kind of generally to a point that I'm not sure if it like, they're also, I mean, because they have incredible resources, much like other institutions in this country, like the New York Times, which does a lot of really shit reporting, but then also does some brilliant reporting because they have the money. They also do some brilliant stuff, obviously. Like it is a place of like incredible opportunity if you're able to make it there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall as an institution, it doesn't have any kind of inherent morality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, back to this Harvard Medical School canceling the session with Gazan patients because it's like one-sided. It just like it begs the question: what is the other side? Sorry, like what is the other side that you want to present it? Like, is it like, do you want an IDF soldier to just go in there and be like, yeah, I was pointing my gun at a 7-year-old and someone hit me in the helmet with a rock, like.
Yeah.
Like, and that it kind of scared me, and that's my trauma. Like, what?
Yeah.
But then I went on vacation in Brazil, but like my
got
vacation,
yelled at.
Yeah, I got yelled at, and also like the Mossad issued like a statement saying that I have to be wary, and like that raised my anxiety because I thought maybe I would get arrested and tried for a war crime. Like. Sorry, like what the fuck is the other side? Like this is
I mean it was such a disproportional conflict in terms of like not just the death, so that was also incredibly disproportionate, but also just like the mass infrastructural destruction of an entire place versus like, you know, no effect in that regard on the other side. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to talk about it with a both sides framework.
Even if you go back to October 7th, the day of October 7th, when hostages were taken and Israelis were killed, they still don't want to talk about the overwhelming amount of evidence that points to IDF killing Israelis to prevent
by
them
accident,
from not by accident,
well,
on purpose.
Some were by accident.
Sure, whatever number, but like on purpose, they have whatever it's called, the Hannibal Directive, that says like you just fire indiscriminately. It doesn't matter if you kill Israelis. In fact, it's better if you kill them instead of them being taken hostage because you don't want them
but
being
anyway,
used as
I mean, we
leverage.
could parse stuff about what happened on October 7th, but I feel like the bigger picture is like overall there was a massive genocide versus like one attack. You know what I mean? Like, overall there was like a state of structural inequality where like one group was living under apartheid. You know what I mean? So there just is no both sides to this.
Well, not even that there's no both sides, but even the side where you're trying to like give as much room for them to talk about like, okay, if you want it to be two-sided, like they have a very narrow view of what it means to be two-sided in that like even if you talk about Israeli deaths, you can only talk about them in a certain way, in a way that is not critical of Israel killing its own citizens and Israel refusing to negotiate for its own hostages.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
I mean, they're just supporting their like military narrative. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this all came after, by the way, the student group. Apparently, there's a student group that formed Students Against Antisemitism, which filed a complaint in court.
This is at Harvard.
Harvard, yeah. But this has also been happening at like a bunch of other universities. So I think
I'm really grateful that we actually have both. I feel like that provides some wiggle room. I don't know how that worked out exactly, but yeah, both definitions.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. But now that Harvard has adopted it, I think you are going to see a lot more universities start to follow suit and adopt the same definition.
They already were.
Because especially at the elite universities like Columbia and Penn, they also have pending lawsuits. I'm sure a bunch of others do as well. Yeah. And God, the testimonies, I don't know if you've heard any of the testimonies from any of these kids who are suing the universities, but it's just like, it's such crybaby shit. It's such crybaby shit. Like, there's like, I don't feel safe on campus. Like, do you remember the girl who got stabbed in the eye? I'm putting this in quotes. She was like, I got stabbed in the eye by a pro-Palestine anti-Israel protester. And like the next day. Like when people wrote the headline, you would think that like someone sharpened the end of the Palestinian. She said she got stabbed with the Palestinian flag. You would think that they sharpened the end of it and then like found this Jewish student and then like jabbed it in her eye. That's how the headline was written. But then she did like the media rounds like a couple days later and her eyes were totally fine. And then the video came out of it happening and it was like she was up in someone's grill and like people were walking by in a march and like a flag brushed past her and she's like, you stabbed me.
Yeah. I mean, again, I never want to lose track of, and like I will repeat it a million times and I don't care if it sounds repetitive.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitism is a real issue. And it is a real issue on college campuses. And it is a real issue across this country, both historically and in this present moment.
Yeah.
I personally have not seen the pro-Palestine movement as in any way augmenting that. I'm sure that there are some people who would disagree, and maybe there's a small place where we could like hear from them and there could be room for that. But yeah, I mean, again, I think basically trying to like stamp out criticism of Israel, I don't think is going to do anything to help Jewish people be safer. And I think that conflating the two, if anything, is making it seem unsafe in that like it makes it seem as like everyday Americans are responsible for the actions of a nation state, which they're not, you know?
What it also does is it plays into the fantasies and conspiracy theories and the stereotypes that people who do harbor anti-Semitic sentiment, it emboldens them because it plays right into like all those fantasies that like all these institutions are controlled by this nefarious state and these people are at the top and they're you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I think that's true, but I also feel like those are the same people who hate Muslims, who hate everyone.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
like it's almost like who cares? But you're right, it does provide them with like new fun material.
Yeah. But then I think the particularly confusing thing is like kind of just going back to you adopt these definitions and you don't all you're interested in doing is just enforcing them against students who are advocating for Palestine. Like you're not
actually doing anything to combat like anti-Semitism. Yeah,
again,
exactly.
The Sig Heil thing, like you just don't give a fuck. It's
no,
just like
you don't. And you're not doing anything to stop
Yeah.
like white supremacist rhetoric growing in this country. You don't give a shit. And those people obviously hate everyone. They hate all minorities, including Jews. So I mean, remember the Charlottesville like protesters being like, Jews will not replace us. It was so fucking creepy. Like, yeah, I mean, a lot of white supremacists are not picky. They hate everyone.
Yeah.
And that's really the kind of the threat of radicalism in this country are like, and it's coming like front stage now with like people like Elon Musk. Like it's not just hiding in the corners anymore. It's back like front stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of alarming that that's not going to get checked and that we're just going to be going after again, like 19-year-olds in kafiyas.
Yeah. And he pardoned all of these January 6th people.
I know.
Who I feel like people have kind of memory hold or forgotten about QAnon entirely.
Yeah.
But like,
I think it's because QAnon kind of won. They elected their president.
But like QAnon was a big part in cooking people's brains.
That's true. I almost kind of forgot about that too.
That led up to
the riots. Yeah.
And QAnon was predicated on there being some sort of like Jewish conspiracy, like very anti-Semitic stuff. But we just don't care about that anymore. Like the fact that he pardoned followers of this fucking Twitter account.
Yeah. Oops. What are you doing, Batata?
I don't know what she's doing. Yeah, like and no one says anything about that.
I know, and it's almost like too boring to point out, but like all these student protesters who like walked around and barely did anything, not like they didn't do anything, but you know, who just did like basic forms of protest are getting slammed across the country with crazy charges.
Yeah.
And then yet these people who literally like attacked law enforcement, who it's kind of confusing because the Trump people are also like, we love cops, and it's like, oh, unless they're guarding the Capitol, like then it's okay.
Yeah,
like there were people who like actually assaulted cops. I can't believe that they also got pardoned. Like I thought that kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought that if you physically assaulted a cop, that was like the one thing you can't do in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, it normally is, but I guess there's an exception for these folks.
Yeah. I'm excited for the inevitable upcoming cop war that pits police officers who are on the side of the officer who was like assaulted at the Capitol against like border patrol agents who are going to be very pro-Trump.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, most cops probably not. I don't want to generalize, but I feel like a lot of cops have kind of fascist tendencies. That's why they get into it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be excited for that one.
But I would say I think we should, for all the people who received the January 6th pardon who have tattoos, I think we just need to inspect every single one of those tattooed individuals.
Why?
So we can, well, because I guarantee you some of them probably have some SS or swastikas or some sort of interesting eagle emblem.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, there's definitely a lot of neo-Nazi influence there. Yeah.
And then we can
Something
see
else.
if Trump is still the friend of Israel or not.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I guess I think that's the thing I also feel a little hopeful about, though maybe it's a little bit late, is I feel like there are people who are realizing that just because Trump supports like another strongman fascist guy like Netanyahu doesn't mean that he's friendly to Jews in the U.S. You know, like I think that those are actually pretty different things as it turns out, you know. He doesn't really care about any minority group in the U.S. particularly.
Yeah.
A lot of the tropes that are used against Jews in the U.S. historically have also been used against Muslims. Like they're pretty interchangeable. I think that's super interesting and something that should be talked about more. Like a lot of the kind of nervousness about like Sharia law in this country and this idea that there are people who are secretly Muslim, who are secretly trying to install their own law is very much just kind of copy and pasted from anti-Semitic tropes of like, oh, people are secretly in control. You know, they're waiting to take over. Like it's very interchangeable.
Why don't you write this article?
I should. I'm in the middle of writing another article. But yeah, after that one, I'll get on it.
Yeah.
I've seen good writing about this globally, but I'm sure it exists. I should look more. I haven't seen like a really good, concise article on like specifically anti-Semitic and Islamophobic tropes in the U.S. Yeah. All right, anything else?
Well, so what else has happened in terms of since the ceasefire? I think it's worth talking about is that it seems very one-sided. I mean, there are some good things happening, like aid trucks finally getting in.
There's less bombing happening in Gaza, but it seems to also
still
create, and it also seems to be now that there's a ramp up in the West Bank also. Yeah,
they're ramping up in the West Bank. As far as I know, none of the expanded settlements since October 7th have been removed or returned.
And even outside of Palestine, there are still like Israeli troops stationed in Lebanon, right? In like Lebanese territory that are not leaving yet.
Right.
So they're just expanding all over the place.
So this is kind of, I think what we've said on previous episodes is that the Democratic Party has just like so thoroughly hollowed out over the course of the year what ceasefire means, that now the Trump administration is able to just kind of continue building on that. And they're not only do the Democrats not get to take credit for like a sham semblance of a ceasefire, right? But they have perfectly set up Donald Trump to, one, take credit for it, and two, allow Israel to continue killing and ethnically cleansing Gaza and expanding into the West Bank while calling it a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And therefore making it so like Israel continue firing, but like should Hamas or any other group fight back, it's like it's on. He just approved, or there was a weapons shipment of like 2,000-pound bombs that was on hold that he just released to Israel. Yeah.
He also has been calling for, there's no concrete plans yet, but he's been like alluding to and saying that Egypt should take like basically Gazans, like
Egypt and Jordan.
Yeah, so they should clear the territory essentially.
Yeah, because he apparently went and saw it, and he was just like, "Oh, everything's destroyed," and but then also at the same time talking about it, it's like there's beautiful beachfront property there that someone could do something with, and so the idea, I mean, it is, we've said this before, but it's just like the goal was always to kill as many people as possible. Whatever people are saying is like Israel's military objective has not been achieved, blah, 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 or like this is a huge victory. I find it hard to make that same assessment when what I'm seeing is Trump continuing to try to expel people, allowing a one-sided war to take place, and then signaling to the markets that, hey, this is land that is going to be developable soon.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that Palestinians will go willingly to Egypt.
They certainly won't.
So,
in Egypt, I mean, I don't know.
Egypt will probably do anything if we pay them enough, but yeah.
Sisi is a dog.
Yeah.
Sure, he may.
Jordan has already absorbed so many Palestinians. I don't know if they are able to take more, if they would want to. Right. I don't know.
My thing is, the only wrench in all this is, I don't know, and maybe I'm giving them way too much credit, but I don't know if Saudi is as open to normalizing with Israel as it was before October 7th. And I don't know if they will hold that position. Or sorry, I guess, will they normalize with Israel at the same time that that the U.S. and Israel are signaling that they just like want to expel? Because I do feel like Trump, that is like one of his signature things. Like, he really wants to be friends with Saudi, and he wants Israel to normalize with Saudi. And I just don't think he can get both Gaza and...
Yeah, I think one thing that's helpful in this moment is that just like, not so much governments, unfortunately, but the popular will of like people across the Arab world is so in solidarity with Palestine that I think that even for as shitty of a government as Saudi, that is as undemocratic as Saudi is, it would be kind of hard for them to pull that off right now. But you never know.
I want to think that, but then I think like, if somehow this falls out of the media cycles and like the same thing is just still happening, that like they'll give some money to Egypt, they'll give some money to Jordan, and they'll just be like, all right, like let's in fact, let's not only like normalize ties, but let's build up and develop Gaza together.
But to completely annex the people of Gaza, like he's speaking of, would be pretty... I mean, the whole world is looking at Gaza right now. You know what I mean? That would be pretty... I mean, it's not like it couldn't happen, but I don't think it would happen without a lot of media coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still maintain, and I know that I'm not like in any way pro-Trump, and he's still being a complete asshole about the situation, but I still think that like, I'm glad that there is even the most partial semblance of a ceasefire and that less people are dying. And it is still fucking incredible to me that the Democrats didn't do it. Like, it's just crazy. And I know it's like not enough and it's still like awful, but like there are slightly less people dying than there were before. People are able to move around Gaza again. And it's not thanks to Trump, but it's also not fucking thanks to the Democrats. So, yeah.
Yeah, I find that particular language maybe a little bit troubling, just because what we have now is just like, what does a ceasefire mean at this point?
No, I hear you on that, but there is less mass slaughter than there was 2 weeks ago. And I'm not saying we should celebrate that, but I'm just saying like it is interesting that it happened now and not earlier.
But it's happening at a point when Gaza is unlivable,
yeah.
Right? And that's exactly the argument that Trump is using. He's like, this is an unlivable situation. I would rather people live. Like he seems like a humanitarian saying all this.
I mean, I'm not saying that, obviously.
I'm not saying you are. But like the way that the media is going to cover it is just like, oh, he wants as many Palestinians to live or whatever.
The media is not covering it that way because the media in the U.S. is pretty anti-Trump.
Yeah. But what I was saying is that he gets to go on screen and be like, well, you know, it's an unlivable situation and I want the Palestinians to live, and the only way for them to live is if they go to Egypt or Jordan. Like, if Gaza is unlivable, and all the infrastructure is gone, like, is it gonna rebuild under Trump? Like, I don't know. Like, even if like a ceasefire, like it can't be that like we're saying Gaza is unlivable and we have a ceasefire, so that's good. But like in the ceasefire, Israel still gets to keep bombing them and like opening fire and shooting people. Like it doesn't seem to me like we have a ceasefire that is going to hold.
Yeah, I agree with you. No one is saying like, oh, this is a good ceasefire or a real ceasefire. But I think it still stands, and I think it's still worth pointing out, just because I feel like he didn't get enough blame towards the end. Mm-hmm. That there would still be a full-scale, full-throttle genocide if Harris was elected or if Biden was still in office. Like, I don't understand how pointing that out then negates the fact that Trump is trying to like excavate people or say that Gaza is unlivable. I mean, people being murdered at genocidal rates didn't make Gaza any more livable. Like that kind of like I mean, I don't think you're arguing for this, but like a political purist situation where you're just like, it's not as if like more people should have died rather than there be this kind of interim, you know?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think we would have ended up in the same situation actually if the Democrats had won.
I don't think so. I think that Biden wanted as many Palestinians to die as possible. I really believe that with my whole heart now. Like I absolutely do. I think that Harris would have been happy if Israel killed every last person in Gaza. Like I really think she would have been thrilled. I think that they're I think that they're Nazis. Like I think that they wanted everyone to die.
I think they didn't care whether everyone died. I think they were aligned with Israel in the goal of like Israel gets to do what it wants. I think they were agnostic as to whether that meant Israel is going to kill every single Palestinian versus like make Gaza unlivable and then like expel all of them.
They weren't even interested in expelling. I think they just wanted them all to fucking die. They didn't even try a tiny bit to put the smallest amount of pressure on Netanyahu. They didn't try at all.
Oh no! Are you kidding me? They told him don't cross this red line, pal.
I know. I'm sorry for getting like hyped up because I know that you agree with me. But like,
when all these leaks came out that Biden was
he was
fuming,
mad.
he was
yeah.
so pissed.
But honestly, I'm like a little angry with myself almost because I think I felt like on some level like, oh, there was a small part of this that was just like intractable. But I really don't think it was now. Like I think that this should be remembered as Biden's like genocide, like 100%. Like he. Yeah, I mean, not only did we send the weapons, but like the same deal that got adopted was on the table in May. Like, why did so many more people have to die? That's insane. And like when Democrats were saying stuff like, well, it can't get worse, like nothing is worse than people lost 30 family members. Like what is worse than that? There's nothing worse, you know? So yeah, I don't want to make light of it or make it seem like we're in a good situation now. I don't think that's the choice. I don't think that's the like, but I think that we were in a situation where like there was no movement before. Yeah. So I don't know.
I have one kind of last thing to say on this is the same way that what's happening now, like I think you pointed to it, it's like a lot of people now are saying it's like, and I've seen this is look what Trump is doing to Gaza. Like he just approved this like weapons shipment and he's talking about all this real estate that needs to be developed and all this expelling Palestinians into Egypt and Jordan. Like, are you happy now, you anti-Harris people? Because like this is what you get. Like we've already, I've already seen that.
Yes.
The same. This is an extension of Biden's policy. Like Biden built the framework for Trump to be able to do this, right? Like we are in a perpetual, never-ending cycle of Democrats building the framework for outright fascism to happen in the following term. Over and over, right? This happened with the border.
I was just going to say immigration is an excellent example of this. Yeah. People being like, oh my gosh, I miss Obama. Obama deported more people than any other American president?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy. That never got coverage.
With drone strikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
again, that's not to say that it won't get worse under Trump because I'm sure it fucking will, especially with immigration. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like this isn't like a switch that just turned on and off, and you would think that listening to mainstream media.
With sanctions regimes that lead to trade wars and like growing hostilities.
At least Obama did good stuff with that on Iran, which the Republicans reversed. But yeah, certainly with other regimes, yeah.
So yeah, this is just a liberalism begets fascism, and that's just like how it always been, and that's how it will always be. Until
I don't totally co-sign on that saying. I feel like it's too far, but I hear your sentiment.
I'm gonna put that on a shirt.
That's a good shirt.
I'm gonna get that tattooed.
You should do like a shortener for it. Liberalism begets LBF.
Just be like liberalism
LBF.
Equals fascism.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's gonna get people talking.
Maybe. Excuse me. Was there anything else that we...
I have a non-political update I forgot to give, but I'll wait first to see if we have anything else to say.
No, that's it. I really do. I'm trying to find some guests whose like either academic research or journalistic work or, just...
I just thought of someone we can ask, but yeah. Who works on Palestine?
Who can, talk to us about the ceasefire in greater detail, because I do feel like we are probably just repeating a lot of things that other people are saying, and I'd love to be able to add like another
perspective
angle of analysis
for sure.
on it. But people I've asked so far are too busy, understandably.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned for our much more lighthearted but very interesting episode next week. We're excited for it.
Yes, that
The
we
very
do have
special
a
guest.
I've been trying to get the guests.
Ahmed's been doing a great job.
I've been reaching. I've been really
Yeah, he's
without
been
a job
out here.
I've really been playing the part of
We're on
producer.
YouTube now.
We're
Check
on
us
YouTube.
out.
Yeah, all of the videos are on YouTube.
Yep. If you prefer YouTube, which I personally do, to Spotify or Apple.
Soon,
give it a try.
We're gonna do the OnlyFans soon.
What? What's our OnlyFans content gonna be? It's gonna be like you correcting me on the mic. It's gonna be like people who are into that.
They're trying to. I think they're trying to get more comedians and non-porn people on there. So.
Oh really?
Yeah, maybe we'll be the first Muslims on OnlyFans.
let's not be the first, please. That seems like a lot to live up to.
Okay.
Can I give my update?
Yeah.
I cut my hair.
Oh, yeah, you cut your hair by yourself.
I did. I just felt like moved to do it. I've never cut my own hair before. And
you felt moved to do it. That's great. Okay.
I did. And I'll see how it looks when it dries. Ahmed was very sweet about it because he was worried, but he was very supportive still. And so he can't really tell me because I would be offended if he told me he didn't like it. But yeah,
this is a very one-sided rule we have in our home.
It's true. I don't like it when Ahmed cuts his hair, but I wish he kept it more messy. But I don't know. I feel like it's pretty good. I'm curious to see how it dries. It felt good to do. I feel a lot lighter. So that was fun.
But you didn't do the undercut, did you?
No.
Okay.
I did like a sophisticated method where I had like most of it up in a ponytail and then I cut it and then I put a little more down and cut that layer. So I did layers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the longer layers and then the bottom. And then it gets shorter.
All right.
Top layers and towards the face.
Looks good.
Yeah. It looks not bad.
It looks good. No, it looks more than not bad.
We'll see when it dries. I'm curious.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But right now it's cute. I'm glad you didn't do the undercut thing that you were talking about because I think that would have gone. I would not be able to lie to you.
I think you talked me out of that. That was fair. But it was getting too heavy. So I'm glad.
You have to take care. Just, enjoy it.
No, when it's really thick, it's not comfortable. You got to trim it.
You should enjoy it. As someone who used to have very thick hair.
Yeah.
And is now a bald man.
You're not bald. You're not bald anymore. You look good.
But it's not, it's not what it used to be.
When I first fell for you, when I first was attracted to you, I forget this. I just project the way that you look now. But you were actually pretty bald and you were still cute. So,
yeah.
And you didn't have facial
hair. I look
hair.
like fucking Caillou.
Who's Caillou?
The cartoon.
From what?
I think he's Canadian.
From what was the cartoon? Oh, the cartoon's called Caillou?
Yeah, he's like a little cancer kid.
I'm not familiar.
I don't think he actually had cancer, but everyone said he did. But
that's messed
he's
up.
just a little bald kid.
Okay. Well, you look great.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye.